Mist hung low over the Burren woods, stitching the pale dawn together with threads of breath. Eowyn mac Fiatach, sworn druid of the Oakward Circle, knelt in the leaf litter and pressed his ear to the ground. Beneath the mulch he heard the constant thrum of life, the chatter of fungal filaments, the slow heartbeat of beetles, the subterranean drawl of water seeking the sea. Yet, most important, he felt the quiet pulse that emanated from the oak rings, a tug like a tide contained in wood. 8 discs sliced centuries ago from a tree revered before written memory lay stacked in a stone-lined hollow. They looked unremarkable, weather-darkened, cracked, lichen-coated. Only Aelwyn knew how loudly they spoke when one stilled the ordinary mind and listened for the other world. It was his charge to keep them hidden from those who would exploit their power or dismiss their voice. But the world was changing. Highways razored ancient hedges. Drones buzzed where hawks once reigned. Aelwyn's order had dwindled to a handful of solitary wardens. Books, screens, and microscopes carried sway more than oral transmission and moonlit vigil. That morning, as the twilight thinned, Aelwyn felt the oak whisper a suggestion he never anticipated. Invite the outsider. The idea coiled through him with both dread and intrigue. 2 weeks later, Dr. Clara Finch trudged up the slick limestone path, boots crunching dried pignut stalks. She was a slight woman, compact as a seed pod, eyes keen and dark behind tortoiseshell spectacles. In her rucksack clinked vials, tweezers, scribble-covered field notebooks, and a portable spectrometer she had borrowed for the weekend. The government's environmental agency, desperate to understand why certain pockets of forest remained inexplicably resilient to disease, had recommended her. When she reached the moss-mounded cairn that served as Aelwyn's dwelling, she paused. Smoke twirled from a small vent, scented with juniper and oak ash. Dr. Finch? Aelwyn emerged in a robe green as pondweed, hair streaked silver, staff carved with spiral knots. His voice was slow, courteous, but edged with caution. Welcome. The wood recognizes a seeker's step. Clara, who prized clarity, ducked her chin in greeting. Mr. Aelwyn, thank you for agreeing to this survey. I've read the limited records on your grove disease-free, despite Phytophthora infestations all around. That's a statistic worth exploring. The Druid gave a small smile. Statistics are only one way of telling stories. Sometimes the story tells itself if you leave numbers behind. All grant stories their charm, Clara said. Yet reproducible data carry farther than charm during grant season. She followed him through a narrow deer trail. Ferns brushed her sleeves, releasing earthy perfume. The forest felt unusually alert, as though the trunks themselves tracked her passage. They reached a clearing ringed by massive oaks, each trunk riddled with burrs like sleeping eyes. In its center yawned a sunken pit lined with slabs of shale. Inside, on a bed of bracken, rested the 8 oak discs. The topmost ring displayed tight annual growth lines, so close they seemed etched with a needle. Clara's breath caught. Good Lord, the preservation is extraordinary. Aelwyn climbed down first, stepping lightly. Trust the stones, they remember. He unrolled a linen cloth beside the rings. Before you begin, know that each ring is a keeper of certain spirits. Your instruments may record chemistry, but the soul resides beyond spectrometers. Approach with reverence. I approach everything with methodological consistency, she answered, though his words unsettled her like faint thunder. She unpacked swabs and a loop, knelt and began noting the cellulose integrity, scratching gently to gather lichen fragments. She asked permission before each action. Aelwyn nodded solemnly, sometimes laying his palm on a ring, murmuring in Irish so old it tasted of river silt and stars. Hours passed. Afternoon sunlight shifted from gold to copper through the leaves. Clara documented phenolic compounds, amazed by the elevated tannin content, enough to deter most pathogens. Have you any idea, she asked, how these rings maintained such chemical potency after maybe 700 years. They were cut from a tree, older than the kingdom that felled it, Aelwyn said. Its rootwork still lingers like a ghost net beneath us. The rings draw from that memory. Trees don't remember, Clara muttered, then caught his raised eyebrow. I mean, not metaphorically. Memory is simply information inscribed in matter, he returned. Yours in neurons, theirs in lignin. Who is to say which is less alive? As dusk settled, she packed her kit. Aelwyn placed both hands on the top ring and chanted. Wind shivered through the clearing, though air elsewhere was still. A faint phosphorescence traced the growth rings, each line lighting like a filament. Clara staggered back, scalp prickling. Her rational mind grasped for explanations. Bioluminescent fungi? Chemical luminescence induced by friction? But the glow spiraled inward faster than she could rationalize, patterning an image interlaced knots that rotated, wove, and sank into the wood again. Then darkness. Did you see? Aelwyn whispered. Clara swallowed. Yes, a phenomenon certainly. Could be luciferic activity, but the kinetics were unusual. She paused, choosing honesty over posture. I'm startled. The oak greeted you. It will speak stronger tonight, Aelwyn said. Stay in the cairn instead of the village inn. Safer for you and for them. She might have refused, yet the forest hummed with a new frequency, and she feared leaving without context. She agreed, texting the innkeeper a polite cancellation. Inside the cairn, walls were stacked dry stone, roof thatched with birch bark and sod. An iron pot simmered nettle soup, shelves held jars of resin, feathers, small bones. Clara jotted notes by candlelight, but her pen felt sluggish. Eventually, she set notebook aside and watched Aelwyn grind acorns in a mortar. Why invite me? She asked. Science and sorcery rarely shake hands. Because the spirits sense forgetting on the wind, he said. We druids listen well but lack numbers. You scientists count everything, yet forget to listen. Together, perhaps we remember and count alike. He sprinkled the acorn meal in the fireplace. The flames flared green, then pure white. Clara felt a shiver not born of cold. She lay on a pallet and dreamt of roots threading her fingers, sinking into loam as her veins became capillaries of sap. Voices whispered through ringed layers of time. Do you choose? Do you choose? She woke before dawn, heart pounding, palms streaked with gritty soil, though she had not left the bed. Aelwyn waited outside, staff planted. They touched you already, come. They returned to the clearing under charcoal sky, mist coiled, diffusing moonlight. Aelwyn spread his arms. Tonight marks Lughnasadh in the older reckoning, the hinge when harvest and wither balance. The oak rings will judge our intentions. He motioned Clara to place her bare hand on the top disc. She hesitated, then did. The wood felt warm, almost damp, heartbeat-like. Alan pressed his palm opposite hers. He chanted low, rhythmic. The growth lines brightened again, but this time the glow spread from the rings along the ground, sketching an underground cartography of roots in living light. The lines converged beneath them, then plunged deeper and disappeared. A thunder of silence fell. The forest stilled. Even midges suspended. Then came rustling, as though thousands of tiny doors opened beneath the soil. Shapes rose. Translucent, leaf-green silhouettes of human figures, interlaced with branches and antlers, wearing cloaks of ivy. Their faces were both bark and bone. Clara's muscles locked in awe. In many voices woven into one, the spirits spoke. Daughter of iron and verdigris, why doth thou pry at our threshold? Clara's throat dried. She searched for the right register. Scientific detachment was laughable here. I seek to understand how this grove resists blight. My world loses trees each year. If we learn your method, we might save forests. A ripple of murmurs passed among the spirits. Aelwyn bowed. Her words are true, I vouch. The voices wove again. Knowledge is root and branch. Sever root, branch withers. You pluck fruit of fact, yet leave the seed of meaning. Will you carry both? I will try, Clara whispered. The ground under her feet softened like tilled earth. A root of light emerged, wrapping her ankle. Not constricting, more an embrace. Images flooded her mind faster than thought. Networks of mycorrhizas ferrying signals, tannin cascades triggered by insect saliva, epigenetic switches closing and opening like eyelashes against drought. Yet overlaid on these were human events, treaties broken, axes singing, children plaiting oak leaves into crowns, biological data braided with myth so tightly she could not see the seam. The sensation was overwhelming. Tears streamed down her cheeks. When it ended, the spirits dimmed to faint lines. Their final words pulsed through marrow rather than ears. Share balance, not dominion. The root withdraws when you pull too hard. Tread gentle, speak whole. They vanished. The glow retreated back into the rings like water siphoned into a sinkhole. Night sounds resumed. Owls, faraway sheep. Clara sank to her knees, panting. Aylwin steadied her. You are woven now, he said. Rest. The next morning, sunlight appeared sharper, each beam edged with green memory. Clara picked up a leaf and sensed its flowing surge. Aylwin prepared oatcakes, humming. What happened to my perception? She asked. The spirits threaded your roots to theirs. You may walk your world, but part of you remains underneath, listening. He poured berry syrup. Use the gift wisely. It can shred a mind if compartmentalized. Pragmatic though she was, Clara adapted by labeling mental folders, mythic data, sensory overlays, multi-species signal. She told herself the brain could integrate disparate data sets like any neural network. She finished breakfast and requested a second session with the rings to gather more measurable readings. Aylwin agreed, but insisted on ritual parity and sense for each data point collected. Over 3 days, Clara ran assays, extracting microcores, running gas chromatography with the spectrometer powered by a solar panel balanced on a fallen log. She discovered obscure flavonoids absent from any database, molecules shaped like interconnected loops, chemical knots mirroring Celtic designs. They had antifungal properties robust even at microscale concentrations. Yet she also felt each extraction as a tug in her chest, as though plucking hairs from a living scalp. She limited herself, compromising between curiosity and care. Aylwin taught her the original names of the seasons, the silence between deerstep and dewdrop, the star pattern that marks where the first acorn of the world fell. Clara taught him about CRISPR gene editing, satellite imaging of canopy distress, community science apps that let children tag tree health. They debated under moon and sun. Sometimes they found themselves laughing, realizing humor translated across disciplines, across centuries. On the 4th evening, men arrived. Clara heard the diesel engine before she saw the glow of headlights through trunks. Aylwin stiffened. Loggers contracted by the county. They file for permits, citing beetle kill elsewhere to justify preemptive harvest. Clara's data bag lay ready, filled with vials she hoped to analyze in Dublin. But now heavy machinery threatened the grove. They hurried toward the boundary path. Bulldozers idled, men in reflector vests adjusting helmets. A supervisor flipped through a clipboard. Afternoon, Clara called, projecting authority. This site is under active pathogen study. You cannot fell these trees without bioclearance. The supervisor squinted. We've clearance from the council. Beetle infestation risk. None present, Clara retorted. I have preliminary lab results. She flashed her university ID. Proceeding now could spread Phytophthora spores lodged in your treads. The man frowned, unsure. Aylwin stepped forward, robe billowing like shadowed leaves. He struck the staff against bedrock. A pulse fluttered through earth. Clara felt it echo in her ribs. Leaves rustled, though wind was absent. The men shifted uncomfortably. "What is this, some protest?" one muttered. He radioed someone. While they argued, Clara stared at the shovel blade of an excavator poised near an oak. She sensed the oak's slow alarm flume quickening, stomata tightening. It was like hearing a heart skip. She looked at Aylwin. He nodded. She knelt, palm to soil. From her mind she released a call, syllables that arrived unbidden. Waken, web, cradle, stand. The ground answered. Out of sight lines, roots thickened, intertwining just below the topsoil, merging into a mat. When the excavator lurched forward, its tread spun uselessly. The ground had turned spongy, yet unbreakable. The machine's weight was redistributed by the living network. Startled, the operator cut the engine. Men shouted. Aylwin raised his voice, calm yet resonant. The Grove denies entry. Heed the warning and depart. An alder at the clearing's edge shed a branch that crashed inches from the supervisor's boots. Bark split, revealing cambium wet as blood. The crew backed away, faces pale. Superstition moved them faster than logic ever could. Engines roared retreat. In minutes, only exhaust ghosts hung where machinery had stood. Clara exhaled. Tremor left her limbs. The root sense subsided to normal hum. "I didn't know I could direct it." "You asked," they answered, Aylwin said, eyes shining with pride and caution. "Remember, power borrowed, not owned. The debt is vigilance." Days flowed into weeks. Clara's initial grant application expanded into a joint study with Oakward Circle, pairing molecular assays with ethnobotanical narratives. She commuted between lab and grove, bridging languages, chlorophyll fluorescence, enchanted ogum, polymerase chain reaction, and spiral knotwork. Her papers, once dry as desiccated herbarium sheets, now opened with field anecdotes that humanized the data, yet never revealed more than the spirits consented. Regulators came, inspectors came, journalists came, each vetted through ritual and reason alike. Some left scoffing, others left humbled. None walked away unchanged. The county rescinded logging permits, establishing a protected biosphere zone. Tourists were limited to guided footpaths. Children pressed their ears to trunks, learning to listen beyond the bark. One autumn evening, Clara sat beside the rings while Aylwin prepared for Samhain observance. Sunset reddened the discs, throwing shadows like spokes. Clara spoke softly. "Before I arrived, my world was vector graphs and chloroplast counts. Now every time I pipette, I feel the weight of what we cannot quantify. That weight steadies the hand," Aylwin replied. "Our callings, braid they, are neither root nor leaf alone, but the whole." She touched the top ring. The wood answered with a gentle throb, a reminder of the underground web where spirits in carbon traced the same circuitry. She realized the oak had never distinguished between myth and measurement. Only humans insisted on that schism. The circles on the disc were just tree rings chronology captured in wood, and simultaneously vortices through which past and future spiraled. "I used to believe fate was linear," she mused. "Now I see it spirals, loops, intersects, like roots." "Fate is roots, choice is branching," Aowen said. "Wherever you walk, part of you remains here in the understory, weaving outcomes you may never witness." He placed a new acorn, plump and gleaming, in her palm. "Plant this where knowledge and wonder both can thrive. Let it decide whether to be lab specimen or sacred tree, or both." Clara closed her hand around the acorn. She imagined its dormant embryo dreaming of sunlight, insects, centuries. Somewhere underground, the spirits murmured approval, and she felt them flex the threads tying her heart to the soil. They were no longer strangers, botanist and druid, science and story, but concentric rings of one greater trunk, still widening in quiet determination toward a sky neither had finished mapping.